All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to today's presentation, which is on the topic of COBRA and how it applies to healthcare flexible spending accounts, as well as health reimbursement arrangements. It's a rather challenging topic because not all the rules and regulations are as clear as we'd like regarding this particular topic. So hopefully we'll be able to provide some clarity and help you with understanding how it applies within your organization. A couple logistical items before we get started. First off, we've eliminated or we put everybody's phone line on mute to eliminate any background noise. We're going to keep these phone lines muted throughout the entire presentation today. If you do have questions, please go ahead and use the chat function. Should be on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Go ahead and type in your question, and I will try to address those towards the end of the presentation. In addition, today's webinar has been pre-approved for one general HRCI recertification credit. In order for you to qualify and receive that credit, we do need you to remain on the webinar for the entire duration. Assuming you do that, we will send you out a certificate of completion via email within 2 to 3 business days at the email address you used when you registered for this event. With that being said, I want to introduce myself to you. I know some of you I recognize as being on previous presentations and others are new. My name is David Lindgren. I am the compliance officer within our organization here, Flexible Benefit Service Corporation. I've been with the company for a little over 10 years now. I want to talk about the agenda for today. I'm going to give you a brief 2-minute overview about who we are as an organization and what services we provide to the industry. Then want to get right into the presentation, and to start, I'm going to spend some time talking about what's referred to as accepted benefits and how they apply to flexible spending accounts. That's an important topic to understand because that's going to have some impact on COBRA. And then we're going to talk about COBRA as it relates to the FSAs, the HRAs. I'll have some final comments to wrap things up, and then we'll get into any questions you have. In regards to our organization, our full name is Flexible Benefit Service Corporation. That's a rather lengthy name, so we like to go by FLEX for short. We are located in Rosemont, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. We have about 100 employees. And just as of September 1st, we celebrated our 26th year of being in business. We were founded back in 1988. We really have broken down our operation into 3 primary business divisions. We have a general agency, we are a benefits administrator, and we operate our own private insurance exchange. To understand what we do as a general agency, some people in the marketplace also will tell you we are a wholesaler of insurance products. We contract with insurance agents, brokers, consultants, and others in the industry throughout the nation, and we help service those agents and help them deliver insurance products and services to employers and individuals. This is just an example of some of the insurance companies that we work with throughout the country. As a benefits administrator, we do this at a third-party level and work with employers throughout the country, administering their flexible spending accounts, their health reimbursement arrangements, COBRA, as well as other services. According to Business Insurance Magazine, we are the 9th largest administrator of these products in the country. With regards to our private insurance exchange, we refer to that as InsureX Solutions. And this is primarily designed to help employers give a more simplified employee benefit platform within their organization. We generally recommend a defined contribution approach that will help the employer cap their cost. And from an employee's perspective, they really do get a more personalized insurance buying experience. They have multiple coverage options from multiple insurance companies. Includes health insurance, dental insurance, vision, as well as other products. So that should give you a brief overview of who our organization is and who we service and support from an operational standpoint. I want to get now into the purpose of your attendance of today's presentation. And to start that, I just have a few sort of overview and refresher comments about COBRA. When we talk about COBRA, the acronym stands for the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. I think most people in the industry are probably not familiar with that full-length name, but that's what it stands for. And simply put, it requires covered employers to provide qualified beneficiaries with health care continuing coverage upon certain qualifying events. Now, that's really the extent of the overview I'm going to tell you about COBRA. The assumptions of today's presentation are that you, the attendees, have some general background about what COBRA is, about what flexible spending accounts are, and what health reimbursement arrangements are. And the reason that general information is needed is because there are very unique rules that do apply to FSAs and HRAs. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the regulations really tell us that COBRA applies to these accounts, but then really doesn't give a whole lot of guidance on how to properly administer COBRA for these accounts. It's not as clear-cut as it would be to administer an insurance product such as health insurance or dental insurance. So we're going to sort of go through the need-to-knows for proper administration of these accounts. And to do that, I'm going to start with talking about the flexible spending account, or the FSA perspective. But before we understand how COBRA applies to FSAs, we've got to review this term accepted benefits and determine if the flexible spending account that's offered within your organization or within the employer meets the definition of an accepted benefit. Now, when we talk about whether or not an FSA is an accepted benefit, that's really going to impact the length of time that COBRA has to be offered for a flexible spending account. So if it meets this definition, then some limited COBRA obligations will apply. You're not necessarily going to have to offer COBRA for the standard 18, 29, or 36-month time period. Now, with the passage of the healthcare reform law, generally speaking, flexible spending accounts are going to be required to meet the definition of an accepted benefit for plan years on or after January 1st, 2014. If they fail to meet this definition, then some other market reforms will apply to the flexible spending account that would really make it difficult to administer as an employer and difficult to comply with, for that matter. So going forward, most flexible spending accounts are going to meet the definition of an accepted benefit, but not all. And generally speaking, when we talk about accepted benefit, an accepted benefit is a term that will exempt the FSA from I'll say the more traditional rules that would otherwise apply to other products. Now, in order to determine whether or not a flexible spending account meets the definition of an accepted benefit, there's two conditions that have to be satisfied or met, and those two conditions are referred to as the maximum benefit condition as well as the availability condition. Now, I'm going to go through this sort of slowly and as clearly as I can for you to understand this. But when we talk about the maximum benefit condition, in order for an FSA to be considered an accepted benefit, there's essentially a cap as to how much money can be accessed by the employee or given to the employee. And according to the regulations, the FSA annual election cannot exceed 2 times the employee's salary reduction, or if greater, the amount of the employee's salary reduction plus $500. And boy, isn't that quite a mouthful. So I've sort of broken down what that really means in layman terms. When we talk about a flexible spending account, usually it's only funded by the employee, but sometimes employers do make contributions. So if the FSA is funded solely by the employee, that's going to satisfy the maximum benefit condition. If there are employer contributions, those employer contributions can be no more than a dollar-for-dollar match of the employee's salary reduction. As most of us know, the maximum salary reduction allowed by the IRS into a flexible spending account is $2,500. So if an employee is making a $2,500 contribution, the employer could contribute no more than $2,500, also amounting to $5,000 in the account. Otherwise, the employer can contribute no more than $500 to the FSA. And just a couple examples here to make it a little more clear as to whether or not the maximum benefit condition would be satisfied. Let's say an employee contributes $800 to the account. The employer also contributes $800. That would mean the annual election of $1,600 is not more than 2 times the employee's salary reduction, and the maximum benefit condition would be satisfied. In the next example, let's say the employee contributes $200 to the FSA and the employer contributes $500. That would mean the total annual election is $700. That exceeds twice the salary reduction, but it's not more than $500 of the reduction amount, so that would be okay. Now, let's talk about an example here momentarily about an accepted or a maximum benefit condition that would not be satisfied. Let's say the employee contributes $200 to the account, the employer contributes $800 amount. That does not meet the maximum benefit condition. That's a $1,000 total election. That's more than twice the salary reduction and is more than $500 greater than the employee's contribution, so that would not be satisfied. Now, one thing to know about the maximum benefit condition is it is applied at the individual participant level, so you really need to be looking at every single participant if there are employer contributions to determine if the maximum benefit condition is satisfied. Now, next condition, the availability condition. That is a regulation that requires participants that have the flexible spending account coverage, they must also have access to other group health coverage made available during the plan year from the employer, such as major medical coverage. Other coverage is not going to include benefits like dental or vision. So let's show a little example of the availability condition. If all employees are offered the group major medical plan and the FSA, that would satisfy. They just need to be offered. They don't have to be enrolled. If only full-time employees are offered the group major medical plan and the flexible spending account, that would be okay. And one thing to note, the group major medical plan and the flexible spending account should have the same waiting period. Now, examples that don't meet the availability condition would be an employer that offers group major medical coverage only to full-time employees, but the FSA is made available to both full-time and part-time. That would not satisfy the availability condition. Or if the employer offers a flexible spending account as of the date of hire, but the group major medical plan after a 60-day waiting period, that would not apply. There would be a 60-day time period in this example where the availability condition could not be satisfied. Now, the reason I talked about the flexible spending account accepted benefit definition and really the availability and so forth is because it really does have a significant impact on COBRA as it relates to the flexible spending account. So COBRA, as it relates to the FSAs, if that FSA meets the definition of an accepted benefit, it satisfies the maximum benefit condition, it satisfies the availability condition, then the FSA is going to be subject to what we refer to as a limited COBRA obligation. Now, there's another premium condition rule that also applies. Most every FSA is going to satisfy that. I'll dwell on that a little further. But FSAs that are not accepted benefits, those are going to be subject to normal COBRA. So either the 18, 29, or 36-month time period, depending on the qualified beneficiary and the specific qualified event. So a couple things, really to point out, or the main thing to point out, is before you really know how COBRA applies, you need to make a determination if your FSA is an accepted benefit or not. And you're really going to want your FSA to be an accepted benefit, because if it doesn't, you have these COBRA obligations or these longer COBRA obligations, but there's also going to be some healthcare reform impact that's going to, again, make it very difficult to administer and to comply. So what really is limited COBRA? Let's make the assumption the FSA is an accepted benefit. COBRA will only need to be offered to the employee if the flexible spending account is considered underspent. And as an example, that would be a situation where the salary reductions by the employees from the year exceed the amount that they've been reimbursed. So let's say on the year the employee has had $600 salary reduced from their paychecks, but year to date they've only been reimbursed for $200. That would be considered an underspent account. On the other hand, COBRA does not have to be offered if the FSA is what we call overspent. So using an example there, let's say the employee has had $600 in salary reductions for the year, but they've been reimbursed for $1,000. That would mean they've been reimbursed for more than what they've had salary reduced. Therefore, we refer to that as being overspent, and COBRA would not have to apply. Just keep in mind, with the flexible spending accounts, they must all offer what's referred to as uniform coverage. And what we mean by uniform coverage is the full annual election is available to the employee on the first day of the plan year, and then they make contributions to the FSA throughout the year via salary reduction. So, it will really vary by employee as to who has an underspent account or who has an overspent account, and subsequently who must be offered limited COBRA. Now, I said the COBRA premium condition will also have to apply for limited COBRA, assuming the FSA is an accepted benefit. And really, all that means is the annual COBRA premium must be equal to or greater than the annual election. In almost every flexible spending account you'll come across is going to satisfy this criteria. And just to give you a quick example, if an employee elected $1,200 into their flexible spending account, that would mean the annual COBRA premium should be equal to or greater than $1,200. COBRA premiums are charged at a monthly rate. So in this scenario, as long as the COBRA premium charged to the employee was at least $100 a month, it would satisfy the premium condition. All right. So when we talk a little bit further about limited COBRA, there's a limited duration that it has to be offered to the qualified beneficiary for the flexible spending account. And so COBRA only has to be offered on that underspent account until the end of the plan year in which the employee was a participant. So again, not having to offer it for the 18, 29, or 36-month time period, just having to offer it until the end of the plan year, and then the COBRA obligation ceases to exist. Now, when it comes to determining what the actual premium you should charge to the employee or the qualified beneficiary is, there is not specific guidance in the IRS regulations or in the COBRA regulations. So really the regulations say, well, while COBRA does apply, they don't dwell into any further how do you actually come up with a rate to charge the qualified beneficiary. So we don't have that formal guidance, but informally the regulators have said the COBRA premium should be based on the annual election. So I think that's pretty straightforward. In the example before, $1,200 annual election means premium should be based on that $100 a month. So just another example, let's say that the employee has 3 months left in the plan year, and they make semi-monthly reductions. So they're getting paid twice a month, and we're going to assume that they do a $600 election into their FSA. That means each paycheck they're going to be paying $25 into that FSA or having that salary reduced. So when we take a look at what the COBRA premium should actually be, it should be $50 per month until the end of the plan year. Now, COBRA rules do allow up to a 2% administrative fee to also be added on if the employer or the administrator so chooses. So if that administrative fee is also included in this scenario, you'd be charging that employee $51 per month for 3 months, and then that COBRA obligation ceases to exist. Now, some questions have come up about the new FSA rollover. If you're not familiar with that, in the past, FSAs were required to be use it or lose it type of accounts, where any unused funds were forfeited at the end of the plan year. Now the IRS does allow for up to a $500 balance to be rolled over from one plan year to the next. The rollover is optional in terms of whether or not it has to be offered. The employer gets to make that determination. But now you have a situation where an employee might make an annual election and then have potential $500 also in rollover. So what's the premium? Sort of the general rule of thumb is don't when calculating the premium, don't take into account that rollover balance. The reason being is that employee or that qualified beneficiary would have already made the salary reduction contribution for that rollover. Rollover only happens after a plan year ends. So they would have already paid that $500 balance. So you're really just going to be basing the COBRA premium on the annual election, excluding the rollover balance. Hope that makes sense. A little bit of a trickier topic than I think most of us would like. Moving on to COBRA and how it applies to health reimbursement arrangements. Now, health reimbursement arrangements, or HRAs, usually won't qualify for the limited COBRA obligation that is available to flexible spending accounts. So while there's a lot of similarities between HRAs and FSAs, you will not usually have the ability to offer limited COBRA. And I'll talk about this in a moment, the circumstance in which limited COBRA would apply. So in general, most health reimbursement arrangements, don't have this limited COBRA limitation, even if it is classified as an accepted benefit. There's no evaluation based on underspent or overspent status because we're not, HRAs are funded solely by the employer, not by the employee. So really, underspent and overspent is irrelevant as it pertains to the HRA. So generally speaking, you're going to need to offer COBRA to the qualified beneficiary or beneficiaries for the entire 18, 29, or 36-month coverage period, depending on the qualifying event that occurs. Now, in order for an HRA to meet or have the opportunity to only be offered on a more limited basis, some very strict rules have to be satisfied. So really, there are some circumstances where, in terms of an IRS perspective, they will look at an HRA based on its structure and determine, it really looks and feels more like an FSA, so we're going to regulate it more like an FSA. And we have to look to the IRS Code Section 106C2 to make that determination. And if you want to take a look at it, by all means go ahead. But one thing that you'll take out of there, one of the main things you'll take out of there, is the FSA value has to be less than 500% of the value of the FSA coverage. And what the heck does that mean? It's a scenario to generally we'll talk about HRAs premium calculations, but generally for HRA premium calculations, you're going to base the premium off of average utilization as opposed to the maximum benefits. And so because you're basing the premium off of average utilization, premiums are usually going to be less than what the maximum reimbursement amount would be. So when we say the FSA value must be less than 500%, we're really going to talk about the the FSA COBRA premium must be less than 500% of the FSA maximum reimbursement. So sort of to dwell on that a little further, let's say there was a $1,000 maximum HRA reimbursement, but the average employee only received reimbursements for $200 on the year. That means that COBRA premium should be around $200 on an annual basis charged to that employee. And if we multiplied 200 times 5 or 500%, then that would fall into this definition, because the maximum reimbursement of $1,000 would be within 5 times or 500% of the $200 COBRA premium. So it's somewhat of a very specific and complex topic. I will tell you that nearly every HRA will not satisfy the limited COBRA definition, so I wouldn't get too hung up on it. And another thing to point out is in terms of the maximum benefit and availability conditions, those would also have to be satisfied for the HRA to be considered an FSA from an IRS perspective. And most HRAs are going to fail that maximum benefit condition. They'll probably meet the availability condition, but most are going to fail that maximum benefit condition because there are no salary reductions into this. These are funded solely by the employer. And most HRAs, I want to say, as an HRA administrator ourselves, I think every single HRA we administer has a benefit greater than $500, and therefore it's going to fail to satisfy that condition. So usually in the vast majority of scenarios, limited COBRA will not apply. In some limited situations, it may apply. So we do have some new unique issues that have come up and quite frankly haven't really been specifically addressed by any regulatory agency as it relates to COBRA and the HRA. But when we talk about an HRA, oftentimes the HRA is tied to a health insurance plan that's offered by the employer. So it reimburses, maybe deductible expenses or co-pays or co-insurance, but it reimburses, some portion of those health insurance plan expenses. And based on new regulations that were issued jointly by the Department of Labor, the IRS, and the Department of Health and Human Services, they now say, HRAs generally have to be integrated with a health insurance plan or a major medical plan. And when they say integrated, it means the HRA can only be offered to those employees that are also on the major medical plan. So you can't have people that waive. You can't have actively employed workers that can waive major medical and still receive that HRA, unless the HRA was only reimbursing expenses like dental or vision. But now, when it comes to former employees, oftentimes HRAs have rollover balances, and they allow those former employees or those retired employees to sort of spend down and continue to access those rollover balances. Well, in terms of the Affordable Care Act, Healthcare Reform Law, and how they define an integrated HRA, they require former employees to have the ability to permanently opt out and waive all future HRA reimbursements. And the reason they have that in place is if the employee couldn't waive the HRA, then that would automatically eliminate their ability to get any sort of subsidy in the new insurance exchanges. So that creates a little bit of a complex issue for the employer, because oftentimes when you offer a health insurance plan that's tied to an HRA, that's offered as one benefit to the employee, and there's one premium that's charged to the employee. Well, now we have a situation where, for these former employees, you have to give them the ability to opt out and waive that HRA. So from a COBRA perspective, are we really now dealing with one plan or two for purposes of COBRA? And I think the safest and most conservative route is two, treat this as two different plans for purposes of COBRA. So offer health insurance and have a premium associated with that, and separately offer HRA with a premium associated with that, and let the employee elect one or both, or none for that matter. So some issues there, along with some of my recommendations. HRAs that are not integrated can only now be offered in limited circumstances based on some rules that came out last year, along with further guidance that came out this year. But in situations where an HRA is not tied to a health insurance plan, there's really only limited types of benefits that can be reimbursed. We refer to these as accepted benefits. So things like dental and vision are generally the only types of standalone HRAs you'll see, or potentially a retiree HRA. But when we talk about a standalone HRA, that will always be offered as a separately elected benefit at the time of COBRA, because it is not directly tied to a health insurance plan. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but COBRA premiums are going to need to be calculated using an actuarial method, which is the same method if you're offering a self-funded major medical plan. It's the same method you would use for that. And one thing to point out is what most employers do, if they are going to charge a premium for the HRA. Some do not charge any premium for the HRA, they just offer it. But if you are going to use an HRA, they use something called a past cost method, but you can't use a past cost method in the first year because you don't have any historical data on that HRA. And a past cost method really just looks at the previous plan year and what was the utilization by the average covered employee or participant, and you base the premium off of that. So some informal comments are, when we're talking about the HRA, is premiums are based on the average expected utilization and not the maximum reimbursement. So if you're an employer that's offering an HRA and you allow for a maximum annual benefit of up to $2,500 in an example here, you're not necessarily going to be able to charge a $2,500 annualized premium to COBRA participants unless utilization was at $2,500. So assuming reimbursements were lower, and let's say the participants are expected to be reimbursed $1,000 on average, you're going to base that COBRA premium on $1,000 and not $2,500. So you really take that 1,000, divide it by 12, and that's your COBRA premium. And you can tack on that 2% administrative fee if you so choose. So that's a key difference when we're talking about the flexible spending account. You really are basing premium off of the full annual election, but when you're talking about the HRA, you're really basing premium on average utilization. So another thing to point out, and sort of some differences here with compared to the FSA, is COBRA premium should be based on a level of coverage. So most of the time, in terms of premiums that are charged from an employer to their employees, they base it on single-only coverage, or single plus one, such as an employee spouse or employee child or family. So whatever tiering you have, you're going to need to set those COBRA premium rates at the start of the plan year, and that COBRA premium will be the same for each coverage level. And that's going to be different than the flexible spending account, where COBRA premiums can vary by every single participant because it's based on their specific annual election, which will vary by the salary reduction amount they choose. So that's sort of a key difference there between the FSA and the HRA. Now, a couple other things you have to take a look into is that HRAs, some of them have carryover or rollover, some of them do not. Let's say you have an HRA that has no carryover. So, as an example, you'll allow up to $1,000 reimbursed for the year. Whatever you don't use does not carry over. It's that balance is essentially forfeited. So in that scenario, you're going to have to offer coverage for the standard 18, 29, or 36-month time periods. You're going to base that premium on the coverage level, again, single only or family or employee spouse. And whatever HRA balance is left for the year, that would be their maximum benefit. And in these scenarios, too, you have to keep in mind that these employees or former employees and qualified beneficiaries should be given the right every single open enrollment, to elect coverage and elect an HRA. So that balance is going to sort of reset and start over after each plan year. Okay, so let's talk about HRA that does have carryover or does have rollover. So generally speaking, the HRA as well as that carryover balance is going to be subject to COBRA. So they're going to be able to access that. The maximum reimbursement is that balance for the plan year plus any carryover. Now that exposes some risk, I'll call it, to the employer because you're going to have to set that COBRA premium, at the start of the plan year, and that's going to be based on average utilization, not on that account balance. So, if an employee has accumulated, $10,000 in carryover or rollover, and they have, let's say, another $1,000 offered to them for the current plan year, that's an $11,000 balance. But if you're dealing with average utilization that's far less than $11,000, you're going to be basing that premium off that average utilization. So you'll be required to charge a premium that's far less than that annual balance plus the rollover. So there is some risk there when carryover is included from a COBRA premium standpoint. So what some employers do, if this is a concern of theirs, they take a look at capping the maximum carryover to limit sort of that COBRA liability. Really up to each employer to decide if they want to offer carryover, and if they do, sort of what the cap on that is, if any at all. So then we also have to talk about something, an HRA that has what we refer to as spend down. Typically, employees are able to spend down the rollover balance and remain a participant until those funds are exhausted. What some employers are doing is giving the employee the option to spend down the balance or offer them COBRA, and as opposed to offering them both. And so then in some situations the employee does not elect COBRA, so they did not get access to any new balances that would otherwise be available to actively employed participants. And so you got to sort of take a look at how you want to approach an HRA with spend down. If COBRA is elected, again, contributions to the HRA from the employer will continue until COBRA is exhausted, and then after that, spend down would start. And if I haven't been clear about what spend down is, that's really it's an option that's employed in some HRAs to sort of encourage more of a consumer-driven approach to healthcare, incentivizing those employees to try and use fewer healthcare dollars, and if they do that, then money carries over, and then when they quit or they retire or they're let go, whatever balance is left over, they get that for their entire life until those funds have been exhausted. So you got to take a look at, is spend down something you want to have included? Is rollover something you want to have included? Is some combination of both or none something you want to do, but it is going to have some impact. So just some final comments for you here. When we talk about flexible spending accounts and health reimbursement arrangements, every qualifying event applies. So we're not looking at just specific qualifying events. I have all of the applicable qualifying events listed on the screen. I'm sure many of you have seen these before, are aware of them, but every qualifying event will apply to FSAs and HRAs. And another sort of, I'll call it maybe a nuance as it relates to the FSA and HRA, is that technically, as is the case with health insurance and dental insurance, each qualified beneficiary has a separate election right. So if an employee or former employee did elect coverage that included their spouse and or children, each spouse, each child, and each employee should be offered the ability to individually elect the FSA or the HRA. In most scenarios, we don't see that happen. It's typically elected, as a family. But technically, you do need to offer them each the ability to individually enroll. So that's something that's a little bit of a hassle in some scenarios. So just a few final comments. There are some complexities involved with COBRA as it relates to flexible spending accounts and health reimbursement arrangements. As a result, if it's something you're not completely comfortable with administering on your own, would encourage you to seek professional guidance, through an attorney or a COBRA agency, or talk and contract with a reputable third-party administrator. And while we know COBRA applies to flexible spending accounts and health reimbursement arrangements, the guidance isn't always as clear as we'd like. It's pretty clear when we're talking about insured products, but it's not as clear and defined when it relates to these reimbursement types of accounts. So that sort of adds a little more to the complexity, as does the Affordable Care Act and rules that require HRAs to be integrated or FSAs to meet this definition of accepted benefits. So again, you might want to talk with somebody externally if it's something you're concerned with. Our contact information is on the screen here. Our Flex Plans number is the office here that administers COBRA, FSAs, and HRAs. Give that number a call if you have questions, 866-472-0886. Have our other lines listed on there, as well as our website and some of the social media sites we're on. But at this point in time, I'm going to open it up to any questions you have. I see one or two have come in. There is a question, will we be sending the HRCI credit after the class? For anybody that's attended the duration of the presentation, we're going to send out the certificate of completion via email within 2 to 3 business days. So today is Wednesday. Probably have that no later than Monday. So that'll be sent to the email address in which you registered. So I'm going to pause for a moment and take a look at some of the other questions. There's a question if the slides will be available. I will ask our marketing team that sends the certificates of completion if they can include copies of the presentation, if that's something you're interested in. So I'll do my best to get that to you. There's a couple questions that have come in that I'm not entirely understanding, so I will do my best to follow up with you after the fact and see if I can't help clarify your question. But other than that, I'm not seeing many other questions. So either you've been confused, or it sounds like you may have a general understanding of this. So. With that being said, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up today's presentation a little bit early. So hopefully, maybe if you haven't eaten lunch, you can get an early start on that. Want to thank everybody for your time today. I look forward to hearing from you, and we'll get you that certificate of completion here shortly. Take care, and have a great rest of your week.